and welcome to the Art of Being Human. You know, we have finally finished the chronic illnesses that we've been dealing with months and months and months. But I do want to read this statement that I got from the internet, and I think it kind of sums things up a little bit. And it was written by Samuel Decker Thompson. And this is what he says: "We are all just a car crash, a diagnosis, an unexpected phone call, a newfound love, or a broken heart away from becoming a completely different person. How beautifully fragile are we, that so many things can take but a moment to alter who we are forever." And that's kind of true, isn't it? If you get a chronic illness, it can alter, in a way, who you are forever. And the other thing I came up with, I thought this was kind of interesting. The word fear is spelled F-E-A-R. It can have two meanings. Fear can mean forget everything and run, F-E-A-R, forget everything and run, or face everything and rise. Face everything and rise. You can use that too to describe what fear is. You either fight it or you run away from it. So now I just wanted to bring that up. I thought that the little paragraph poem-like thing was very interesting. Now what I want to do, as I said before, we're going to talk about personality. Since we have done chronic illnesses that disrupt personality, we need to take a look at what it is. Now I've done some of this before, but this is kind of like a review, which I think might be helpful. What is personality? We make a mistake, you know. We say somebody has a wonderful personality. Oh, I don't like that person. They don't have much personality. What are they talking about? They're talking about personality characteristics that they like or dislike. This person is friendly, gregarious, a lot of fun to be with. Yeah, they've got a great personality. This person is kind of morose and isn't happy and stays to himself. He doesn't have a good personality. You can't say that a personality is good or bad, or that it exists or it doesn't exist, because truthfully, every person has a personality. So what is it? It is the sum and total of who you are. It includes everything about you. It includes the fact that you're a Republican or a Democrat. It includes the fact of who you voted for president because you liked them better than the other person. It includes what color your eyes are, you know, what kinds of clubs you join, what your interests are, what your abilities are. So it includes your physical body and all of its characteristics. Are you blonde? Are you brunette? Do you have white hair? What about the color of your eyes? Are you tall and thin? Are you short and heavy set? What is it? It includes all of that. Your likes, your dislikes, your beliefs, and your gene structure. I think, and this is my own personal opinion, I think that most of the things that affect us in our personality are genetic. It's true that things that happen to you and change your life influence that and change that somewhat. But I think that your basic characteristics are genetically caused. They come from your parents, your grandparents, and all the way up the line. And now that doesn't describe, of course, why you happen to like chocolate ice cream better than vanilla, and it doesn't change the fact that you may prefer being a Republican to a Democrat or vice versa. It doesn't have anything to do with that. But all of that becomes incorporated in. You got to remember the things that happen to you, whether good or bad, healthy or not, your brain thinks about them, and then it forms a perception of whatever that means. I've heard people say, well, everything bad happens to me. So you know that they're not truly happy, because they're not saying, you know, I really like what I do, I really have wonderful friends, you know, I really love the city that I'm living in. No, everything happens to me is bad. One of my friends that I used to work with, he was a computer expert. A really nice person, a very smart person, but he was depressed a lot. And I said, well, what do you think about life? He says, life sucks and then you die. And that was his philosophy of life. Life sucks and then you die. And I said, well, it doesn't always have to suck. It is true that eventually we're all going to die, but life doesn't have to always suck. I like what I'm doing. I wouldn't give up my life for anything else. You know, I'm not an unhappy person. I'm doing exactly what I want to do, and things are working out the way I think they should work out. But I do believe that there's direction that God gives you, and He places you where you are supposed to be. And then when you're in that place that you're supposed to be, you feel content and happy, and God arranges for that too. But I think, you know, our characteristics, when you consider the fact that people have illnesses and they're genetic in their origin. People have heart trouble, they have diabetes, they have mental problems, or they don't. They have other things that's wrong with them. Their kidneys are failing or they're not. And all of this stuff is like genetic because your parents had it, your grandparents had it, and on it goes. So I really believe there's a very strong assumption, but this has always been what I've thought, is that a lot of our psychology and a lot of our illnesses and a lot of our preferences are based upon what we are born with, our genetics. And I think that's important. But people will say, and I understand what they're saying, and I agree with it to a certain extent, it's a nature-nurture thing. No matter how good I am or how bad I am, there was usually some predicating factor before that caused that. Now, if you have good experiences, it's going to help you to have a good attitude on life. If you have negative experiences, you may not have a good attitude on life. And so it certainly is true that what happens to you in your emotions and the experiences that you have also determine what your personality is going to be. But that's kind of a blending with the genetics that you already have. And that's the way that is. Personality is developed from your genetics, what you have inherited, your physical problems, your illnesses, your learning abilities or disabilities, your IQ, your emotional health. All of that gets blended together. And your personality, and the reason that you are so unique, and no two people are alike, and then the reason that no two people are alike is nobody's genetics are the same. Everybody is a little bit different, and that's the way it should be. No snowflake is like any other snowflake. No fingerprint is like any other fingerprint. And so therefore you are unique and you are different. And it would be a mistake on your part, but it happens all the time as you're growing, to want to be like somebody instead of being yourself. You need to develop yourself to be the best that you can be because you are you. There's a nice little poem, and I didn't bring it in because I didn't think of it, but there's a whole poem, and it's about, I think, a pig, two pigs. You are you, and they discuss this. The pigs in the story discuss this. One pig is wonderful, and he's always on time, and he dresses well, and the other pig is slovenly and doesn't dress well, and everything's a mess in his house and so forth, and he feels like he's not a worthy pig like the other pig who is so well dressed. It's a children's story, basically trying to discuss self-esteem for children in a way that they will understand it. And it comes to the conclusion that you are you no matter what. And that's nothing to be ashamed of. If you're one kind of person, that's great. If you're another kind of person, that's great. We have to develop the sense of the worth of all people. Or as the book would say, the worth of all pigs. All pigs are worthy. And that's just the fact that they're different doesn't mean that they're unworthy. You know, there's a lot to do in children's books about writing about animals because children love animals. They love their puppies. They love their kittens. And they can understand things. You can write things about the pets and have it illustrate some fact about human beings that the child may not be mature enough yet to understand, but they'll lock onto it if they're talking about a kitten or a pet or something like that. Emotional health is very important. Part of it is genetic, but a part of it is doing whatever it is, that social things that have happened to you others. What I'm trying to say, whatever happens to you socially is a part of your personality, just as genetics is a part of your personality. And your parents play a part in it because their genetics are passed on to you. And you have to understand that children are raised differently. Some children were loved by their peers and their siblings, and other children were not so loved. And that has a big, deep imprint upon a person's mind. Now, don't want to take this genetic thing too far, but I tend to think that it's very important. Obviously, I wouldn't be talking about it. But if you have, say, you've been through abuse, and you've been treated badly, and you've never been loved, and this has an impact upon you. If you have been abused, you actually can get a brain injury from the abuse. And in treatment, that brain injury has to be treated, but you can recover from that because the brain is somewhat plastic. It has a plasticity to it. And what I mean by that, I'm not saying it's made out of plastic or anything like that. It has a plasticity to it, means that it has some flexibility to it. And so if you have been abused and you have been injured in your abuse, you have been treated terribly, and you have an abuse problem in your past, not your fault, it's never your fault, but somebody has treated you badly, your parents have treated you badly, you never were treated right, and you know that, instinctively you know that, then you have possibly a brain injury as a result of that. And that brain injury needs to be healed, and it can be healed. So the good news is, even if your nurture was not as good as it should be, you can heal from injuries like that. And when you heal from injuries like that, you can become a healthy person. So it's not like I was abused, I don't have a chance anymore. I was abused and I was injured as a child. Somebody beat me up. My parents were always beating me up. My father was an alcoholic. He was always beating me up. And I have no pleasant memories of my childhood. And that does form an injury for the brain. But due to the brain's plasticity, due to the fact that the brain has some flexibility about it, it can heal. And that healing is important. That's a part of your personality, too. Everything that happens to you is a part of your personality. You can heal from that which has hurt you, and that brings you back to what you should be or what you can be. So you don't have to worry that once you've been abused, that your life is forever over. I was watching on television about a woman who was abused, and she was actually abducted and abused by her abductors, and she was trying to leave a message and talk to another woman that had just been rescued from being abducted, who was also terribly, terribly abused. And what this first woman said was, "You're never going to be quite the same as you were, but you can have a whole new normal. You can heal. Your life will be different because of your past experience, but at the same time, you can heal, and then you will create a new normal for yourself." And I know I've worked with people who have had divorces. They have children. They're raising their children alone, and Christmas time or any other holiday time is terrible for them because it's not like they had when they were children. It's not what they expect to have now, and it's just different. And so I've talked to them about creating a new normal. You know, no, you don't have your wife, or you don't have your husband, or this or that has happened. Don't just sink into despair and let it overtake you. Your brain can heal from it. And not only can it heal from it, you can create a whole new normal. I remember talking to one person about having, instead of Christmas Eve coming and they're being despondent because their whole family wasn't there, I said, have a pizza night for you and your kids. On Christmas Eve, why not just get together, get a couple of pizzas and soda or whatever, something that they're going to like, ice cream, whatever, and just enjoy watching movies or doing things with your kids. Create a normal for them, and they need that new normal, because if you have suffered as an adult due to abuse, your children have suffered too, because they've seen it or they've experienced in some kind of way. And the way to get PTSD, and I don't want to branch out too far in this, but the way to get PTSD is to either experience abuse or traumatic events, or to see it. You know, you don't have to have it happen to you to develop PTSD. You could also see it. So when a child has experienced it vicariously, their parents are fighting, their parents are abusive to each other, and then what does the child get? They get PTSD too, because even though maybe they haven't been abused, have experienced the parents abusing each other, and that has influenced them, so they too have problems. And so therefore they need to create a new normal. If you're a parent and you're having problems, then the best thing to do is to create a new normal, not only for yourself but for your children as well. The brain can adapt to that. Now, part of your personality structure is the fact that you can adjust to all kinds of things happening to you, and that doesn't mean, when I say adjust to it, that you're going to live with it and be sunk by it and never change it. You know, there's always that factor of people saying, well, you have to adjust to what's happening to you. And I don't think you always have to adjust to what's happening to you. I think you can take what's happened to you and change it as much as you can to create something different about it and create a new normal for you, and also create a new normal for your family. And when you do that, life has meaning again. You're not just sitting there, well, I have nothing I can do. You know, I was abused as a child. My father or my mother beat me up. And when that happened, I will never be the same. And so therefore, I'm going to be affected by the rest of my life. And in essence, when you're saying something like that, you're putting yourself in prison. You're saying, I'm in a box. This is what happened to me. I'm in this box with all the experiences of all these things that happened to me, and now I'm stuck with this for the rest of my life. Well, you may not be stuck with it for the rest of your life. You may not change what happened to you. You may not be able to change what happened to you, but at the same time, you can take what happened to you and put a different light on it. It happened to me, but now is a whole nother day. That was then, and this is now. And because this is now, I now have a chance to make a difference in my life. I can do something different. I can learn something new. I can have a new career. I can make new friends. I can value myself because I am a valuable person. God didn't create junk. He created valuable people. And I am a part of that. And even if I've been sick or I've been distressed or I was a drug user, this is a whole new day. A whole new year is coming. Make something different. I didn't intend to get on this tirade when I first came in. I actually had notes, things I was going to talk about. But sometimes if I get an idea, it's because that idea is important and it needs to be followed through. So I think personality includes everything about you, absolutely everything about you, the good, the bad, everything. And yet your brain can respond to that and make changes. The physical things you may not be able to change. The emotional things and the way you look at it can change because the brain is capable of doing that. You know, our brains are marvelous. They're wonderful. They not only do a lot to keep us conscious and we learn from our brain and we react to our environment because of the brain is able to do that, but it can be creative. And when you get this sense of creativity and, this didn't work, so let me try that instead. You know, I flunked out of college 3 times, so maybe college isn't the place for me. Maybe I should be doing something else instead. Let's find what works. Let's find what works for you. Now, when we get on the major study that I will do in maybe 3 or 4 weeks, whenever we get started with it, there'll be opportunities for you to think about, well, this is what I am, and this is how I have felt, and this happened to me when I was in this stage of development. Things are always happening, but I can turn that into something that's valuable, and I can value myself. So I'm going to close it here, but I think that when you think about personality, don't limit it to, well, it's this, and this. Think of it as being the total you. And then if you have a problem, think about how the total you can change into something better. You know, the brain is remarkable. Whether you can change physically, well, maybe you can if you're getting medical help. Maybe you can. But if you can't, you can still change emotionally. You can look at things differently. You can become creative, and you can enjoy life. So you're not stuck, is what I'm saying. You're not stuck in that little box that you perceive as your emotions and your personality, and I can't work my way out of it, and this is the way I'm going to be for the rest of my life. And that's not necessarily true. So start thinking along these lines, because we're going to go into this, and I think it will be helpful to a great many people to realize that change is possible. It's within the realm of possibility, and you can do a lot that you may not even think you can do. So we will be getting into all of that and trying to make this next study creative. So I'll close it here, and please join me next time.